Quiet over Robinson, Texas, a small town wrapped in stillness where the sound of crickets filled the dark. But at 2:14 a.m., a voice broke through that silence, steady, calm, and disturbingly composed. "My husband isn't breathing," she said. "No tears, no panic, just precision." The 911 operator noted it immediately, the kind of calm that doesn't come from shock but from control. The call lasted exactly 4 minutes and 32 seconds. In that time, the dispatcher heard no movement, no sobs, no attempts to save him. Only the faint hum of a ceiling fan and a woman breathing in measured intervals. When first responders arrived at 104 Cedar Hill Drive, they found the back door open, a glass shattered on the floor, and a man clinging to life in his bed. He was barely conscious, blood seeping through the sheets, the metallic scent hanging heavy in the air. His name was Daniel Rivers, a devoted husband, a high school football coach, and a man everyone in town seemed to love. Her name was Clara Rivers, his wife of 12 years. To neighbors, they were the perfect couple. To police that night, they were a mystery waiting to unfold. The house was neat, almost too neat. No sign of forced entry, no struggle, no muddy footprints except one faint smear near the back porch, too deliberate to be random, too small to be his. Paramedics rushed Daniel to Hillcrest Medical Center. Clara stood in the doorway as they worked, her robe perfectly tied, her hair brushed behind her shoulders. She didn't ask to ride along. She didn't ask if he would make it. She just stood there, silent, as blue lights washed over her face. Detective Marla Henson, 20 years on the force, noticed it instantly, the stillness. The kind of composure that doesn't belong in tragedy. She'd seen grief. She'd seen denial. But this was something colder. Inside the bedroom, officers found Daniel's phone on the nightstand untouched since 10:46 p.m. A pair of gloves, soaked and discarded, lay near the laundry room. And on the kitchen counter, a bottle of wine and 2 half-filled glasses. One with fingerprints, one without. Morning broke over Robinson like nothing had happened. School buses ran. Coffee brewed. Life continued. But at the Rivers home, yellow tape fluttered in the wind, whispering secrets to no one. By noon, Daniel's condition had worsened. He was in a coma, stab wound near the shoulder, internal bleeding. No defensive injuries. He hadn't fought back. He never saw it coming. When detectives questioned Clara, she spoke softly, with the same eerie calm from the night before. She said she had fallen asleep on the couch after dinner. She woke up to a noise upstairs. By the time she reached the bedroom, Daniel was already bleeding. She called 911. She had no idea who could have done it. Her story was clean. Too clean! And yet nothing directly contradicted it. The open door, the broken glass, it could fit a home invasion. But Detective Henson's instincts told her otherwise. The open door looked staged. The glass fell outward, not inward. The glove in the laundry room too convenient, as if left behind for someone to find. And those wine glasses, one untouched, one waiting. Later that afternoon, neighbors gathered outside their fences, whispering. Daniel was loved by everyone. He organized the school fundraisers, helped the local kids fix their bikes. But Clara, she was polite, reserved, distant. No one really knew her. Some said she rarely smiled when Daniel was around. Others remembered how she once stood alone at a Christmas party, staring out the window while couples danced behind her. People talk when tragedy strikes, but sometimes their gossip hides the truth in plain sight. By evening, the forensic report came in. No foreign fingerprints on the door. No footprint in the yard. No stolen items. The crime scene told a story, but it wasn't the one Clara was telling. And yet, something didn't add up. A partial print was found inside the gloves, too smudged for ID, but they weren't store-bought. They belonged to someone in the house. Someone who wanted to erase their presence but didn't erase it enough. Detective Henson returned that night to walk through the scene again. The house felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. Photos still hung perfectly aligned on the hallway wall. Clara and Daniel smiling at a lake, laughing at a fair, holding hands under the Texas sun. A perfect life until you looked closer. In one frame, Clara's eyes didn't match her smile. They looked away from him towards something distant, something unfinished. Henson followed that feeling into the backyard. The grass was damp, the air colder near the water lane. Behind the house, a small pond shimmered under the moonlight. She noticed something odd, a patch of disturbed soil near the edge, half covered by reeds. Kneeling down, she brushed her hand against the dirt. Something metallic glinted beneath it. A single earring, though expensive, not mud-stained but recently dropped. It wasn't Clara's style. It wasn't hers at all. The next morning, the hospital called. Daniel's vitals were failing. The doctors said he might not make it through the night. When Detective Henson told Clara, her face didn't change. She simply nodded, whispered something under her breath, and asked if she could go home. That night, Henson couldn't sleep. Something about that earring, it gnawed at her. If it wasn't Clara's, then whose was it? A lover? An accomplice? Or a trap left for her to find? The answers felt buried somewhere in that pond, in the darkness beneath its still surface. And as the wind moved across the water, Henson couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was still watching her from the house on the hill. Because behind every calm voice, there's a storm waiting to speak. The next morning, A call came from the hospital. Daniel Rivers was gone, but not before whispering one final word to the nurse beside him. A single name that would shatter everything the town thought they knew. Barely risen over Robinson when the hospital's call came through. Detective Marla Henson stood by her desk, the phone pressed against her ear, a half-empty coffee cooling beside her. The nurse's voice trembled as she spoke. Detective, before he passed, Daniel Rivers, he said a name. Then McClura, one word, thus audible, but enough to turn grief into suspicion. By 8 a.m., the Rivers house was surrounded once again. Yellow tape flapped in the autumn wind, and news vans lined the street. Inside, Clara sat at the kitchen table, her hands folded neatly, a faint smile crossing her lips when Henson entered. She already knew. Before anyone said a word, she knew what Daniel had said, but her expression didn't break. Her calm was her armor, and behind those composed eyes was something else, something that didn't belong to a grieving widow. Henson watched her carefully. The same way you watch a still pond, you never know what's beneath until it moves. Forensics had more to share now. The gloves from the laundry room were indeed her size small, matching a brand found in her own cleaning supplies. But the blood inside wasn't Daniel's. It was hers. A cut, maybe an accident, but there were no wounds on Clara's hands, and no explanation that made sense. Then came the second report. The soil sample from the pond, mixed in with the mud, was fabric fiber black, synthetic, and burnt at the edge. It matched the lining of a jacket found in Daniel's closet, one missing since the night of the attack. Henson's gut twisted. The pieces weren't forming a story, they were forming a performance. Every clue, every item, every open door was theater, a staged tragedy in 3 acts. That evening, as the town mourned their beloved coach, Clara held a vigil. She stood in front of candles and photographs, delivering a soft speech that moved some to tears. But for Henson, every word was a blade, calculated, rehearsed, hollow. She spoke of Daniel's loyalty, his strength, their unbreakable bond. But behind her, on the projector screen, was a photo that made Henson's heart stutter. It was Daniel, smiling beside a younger woman, the same woman from the earring found near the pond. The caption under the photo read, Booster Club Volunteer Banquet, 2023. Her name was Lauren Whitfield, a teacher's aide at Robinson High School. And just like that, the motive began to breathe. Over the next 48 hours, the investigation tore through every piece of Daniel's life. His emails, his messages, his bank transactions. There was weeks of late-night conversations, private dinners, and hotel bookings under fake names. A secret affair, but that wasn't the twist. The twist was that Clara already knew. Months before the attack, Clara had quietly hired a private investigator. The receipts showed payments under her maiden name, cash transfers, surveillance reports, photographs. She had known about Lauren. She had seen them together, and she had waited for the perfect moment when sympathy would be her alibi. When police found the PI's number in her records, they called him in. He was nervous, sweating through his shirt. Said Clara didn't just want proof of infidelity, she wanted patterns, habits, weak spots. She wanted to know when Daniel would be home alone. And 2 weeks before the attack, she asked a strange question. If someone broke into a house, how long before police would respond? It was no longer about grief. It was about control. About a woman who planned her revenge down to the minute and did it with the calm precision of a surgeon. But one thing still haunted Henson. The earring that happened. Was Lauren there that night? Or was the earring planted to drag her into Clara's story? The answer came when divers returned to the pond. Beneath 3 feet of murky water, they found a burned phone, sealed in a plastic bag. Inside the phone, half-corrupted messages, fragments of an argument between Daniel and Clara. Her words were cold. You took something from me. I'll take something from you. But one message stood out. Sent at 11:03 p.m. Less than 3 hours before the 911 call. Meet me by the pond. I just want to talk. It was sent from Daniel's phone, but the typing pattern, the punctuation, it matched Clara's style exactly. Detective Henson pieced it together like a puzzle made of shadows. Clara had lured Daniel outside first, under the moonlight near the pond. A confrontation turned violent. He stumbled back toward the house, bleeding, collapsing on their bed. Then she staged the scene, shattering the glass, leaving the door open, placing the gloves where they'd be found. And when she dialed 911, she made sure her voice was calm. Because panic is suspicious, calm is convincing. Still, Henson needed proof, something that would hold in court. So, she returned to the pond one last time. The reeds swayed gently, concealing what was left of the past. A glint caught her eye, metal, half buried in silt. It was a wedding ring, not Daniel's, Clara's. Inside, a single engraving, "Till silence do us part." That was no coincidence. That was a message. Back at the precinct, the case file grew thicker, heavier. The calm wife, the perfect marriage. The silent call that fooled everyone. But as Henson prepared to bring her in, a new development hit the radio. Lauren Whitfield was missing, her car abandoned outside the school parking lot. Her phone last pinged less than a mile from the Rivers house. The pond suddenly felt deeper than anyone imagined, because maybe it didn't just hide evidence. Maybe it hid another secret. That night, under the weight of thunderclouds, Henson returned once more to Cedar Hill Drive. Clara sat on the porch, motionless, watching the rain. Lightning flashed, revealing the faint trace of mud on her slippers. In her eyes wasn't fear, it was relief, as if everything had gone exactly as she planned. Because when the devil makes a deal, it's never in chaos. It's in calm. The next morning, divers went deeper into the pond. And this time, what they pulled from the water wasn't a phone or a ring. It was a body, wrapped in black plastic, face pale, hair drifting in the current. Lauren Whitfield, and tied to her wrist Clara's missing gold bracelet. Fog hung thick over Robinson, turning the small pond into a mirror of ghosts. Detective Marla Henson stood at the edge, her boots sinking into the wet soil, eyes locked on the body being lifted from the water. Lauren Whitfield, the same woman whose name had been whispered behind closed doors, whose laughter once echoed down high school hallways. Now, she was silent, her body wrapped in black plastic, wrists bound, hair tangled in reeds. The divers moved slowly, reverently, but as they rolled her onto the stretcher, something small slipped from her hand, a charm bracelet, broken at the clasp. A charm shaped like a heart, inscribed with the name Clara. The calm wife's secret had just surfaced. Back at the precinct, the evidence began to align like constellations of guilt. Lauren's phone, recovered from the pond, still carried half a text never sent. She knows. Please help me. Her last call had been made at 11:07 p.m. to Daniel Rivers. Duration, 9 seconds. No words recorded, only heavy breathing, and then a woman's voice in the background. Controlled. How? Clara. Detective Henson replayed that audio over and over, each time feeling the weight of its quiet horror. Clara had killed twice, once out of rage, once out of necessity. Lauren had known too much. She wasn't supposed to survive the night, but Henson also knew something else. Clara would never confess. She would control the narrative as she always had, calm, perfect, unshaken, unless someone forced her hand. The next evening, a storm rolled in from the west. Thunder cracked above Cedar Hill Drive, lightning slicing across the sky. Henson parked outside the Rivers home, watching Clara through the window. She was at the kitchen sink, washing a single glass slowly, deliberately, as if she were rehearsing serenity itself. Henson stepped inside without a word. No cups, no threats, just presence. The house smelled faintly of bleach and lavender, the scent of control. On the table lay a folder, news clippings, photos of Daniel and Lauren, neatly arranged in chronological order. It wasn't guilt, it was pride, a curator's exhibit of revenge. Henson placed a recorder on the table and began to speak softly, almost kindly. She told Clara that they had found Lauren, that Daniel's final words had named her, that the pond had given back everything she tried to bury. For the first time, the calm cracked, not in anger, not in tears, but in a single twitch of her jaw, a flicker of something she couldn't hide. Henson leaned in. There's something I still don't understand, she said. You planned this so perfectly. Why leave the bracelet? Clara's eyes lifted, distant and classy. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Because even water needs to remember. The silence that followed was suffocating. Rain drummed on the windows, thunder rolling closer. And in that sound, Henson saw it all unfold: the betrayal, the plan, the calm rehearsal of murder. Months of watching her husband's affair. Weeks of pretending to forgive. Days of rehearsing that perfect 911 call. Clara hadn't lost control. She had control of everything. Of Lauren. Of the story that would follow. Until now. The arrest came quietly. No shouting. No straw ball. Clara simply placed her wrists together, like a performer taking a final bow. As she was led past the reporters, her face remained expressionless, almost peaceful. In the courtroom weeks later, she wore black. She spoke calmly. She smiled faintly when the jury's verdict was read, guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder. When asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, she looked directly at Detective Henson and said, "Peace takes sacrifice." But peace was something she would never have again. Inside her prison cell, the quiet she once commanded became her punishment. Every night, the echo of that 911 call replayed in her head. Her own voice, calm and empty, trapped in an endless loop. Outside, Robinson tried to forget. The pond was drained and filled with concrete. The house on Cedar Hill sold to strangers. But some nights, when the wind moved through the trees, neighbors swore they could still hear it. The faint hum of a ceiling fan, the soft voice of a woman saying, "My husband isn't breathing." Detective Henson stayed with the case long after it closed. Some crimes end on paper, others stain the soul. She often thought about Daniel, the man who never saw the knife, the betrayal, the calm before his final breath. And she thought about Clara, whose voice had fooled everyone but the silence itself. Because silence, she realized, isn't peace. It's confession without words. Months later, a letter arrived at the precinct. No return address. Inside, a single line written in delicate handwriting, I told the truth. You just didn't listen. Below it, taped to the page, a fragment of gold, the missing half of the charm bracelet. Henson held it under the light, the metal glinting like a heartbeat. For a moment, she wondered if Clara had hidden something deeper still, another secret, another layer to her calm. But then she understood. This wasn't a confession. It was a message. Calm can hide guilt. Calm can hide rage. But calm, in the end, can't hide truth. Because no matter how still the water looks, it always reflects what's beneath. And on the quiet streets of Robinson, Texas, the calm wife's voice still lingers, not in sound, but in silence. A reminder that evil doesn't always scream, sometimes it whispers.